Okay, the discussion about free will is interesting, isn't it? In terms of free will, how to exercise it, what we're learning, those kind of things. But let's go back to our soul. Actually, I might just put that here. Incarnation process. And I'll draw it as a heterosexual soul. I don't wear dresses, so...
Would be all right.
Well, there are some men who do.
It
but
would be all right if you did.
Okay. One of the things that happens when you're in your physical form a lot is this physical body, so that's the physical body, and this is our spirit body. And of course, you know, the other half of our soul has the same, a physical body and a spirit body, of which half of the soul sort of controls. But the problem with these forms, you could say it's not really a problem, it's just because of a lack of understanding of truth that this problem develops. But what happens is in the physical body you become very sensorially occupied. And what I mean by that is that your senses, your senses of sight, so see, hear, right? These senses become very important to you, don't they? Touch, yeah, so feeling, but it's to do with touch, isn't it? So taste, which actually, from a spirit perspective, is the same as smell. So, but smell we often refer to as a separate sense. These things we have a tendency to become very focused on. So instead of seeing everything as part of our soul, which is spirit, has a lot of other senses. These senses are in the physical body. They are also in the spirit body, but to a heightened degree. And what I mean by that is, in your physical body, you see in the visible spectrum. So, which is what we call just above infrared to below ultraviolet, is that visible spectrum. I forget what frequency it is, that spectrum, but we see in that spectrum of light, and that's what the physical body is capable of seeing. So your eyes are only capable of seeing those things. Your spirit body, which also has eyes, but those eyes are capable of seeing a larger spectrum. And also in the visible spectrum, colour is a mixture of those colours from just above infrared to ultraviolet. So you're talking violet down to, what's the lower one? I think is it red? Yeah. Those colours are a mixture of those colours is what you see. So everything we see around us is just a mixture of those colours. Yep. But in the spirit body, you've got a larger visible spectrum. And so there's colours that exist to your eyesight in the spirit body that you've never seen on Earth, and you won't ever see until you pass. Does that make sense to you? Because your spirit body is capable of seeing a wider spectrum of colour. In other words, the sense of sight, your eyes in the spirit world, are able to differentiate another frequency spectrum of light that includes the visible spectrum, but is wider than the visible spectrum. And so that means when you pass in the spirit world, you'll see different colours than you've ever seen on Earth. It's just a simple thing. So this sense of sight that exists in your spirit body, in your physical body, is enhanced in your spirit body. So you could say it's a superset in your spirit body. It's better than your physical body. So this is why you need to, if you learn to use something physically, when you pass, it benefits you, but there will be a wider number of things you can use when you're in your spirit body than you could physically. And of course, for most of us, because we've learnt how to use them physically, we quickly adapt to using our sight, for example, in the wider spectrum than we had before. Because we're used to seeing, and so we expect to see when we're in our spirit form. And of course you do see in the spirit form. The other thing is that, I don't know if you notice on Earth, but even if your eyesight's very, very good, you can't see detail a long way away. Your focal length of your physical eye has a certain field of adjustment. In your spirit body's eyes, the field of adjustment is wider. So you can actually see things that are like hundreds of miles away, rather than just a few miles away or a few kilometres away. You can see hundreds of kilometres. Does that make sense to you? Because each body has a better capacity for experience. God designed it that way so that your experience after you pass will be better than your experience on Earth. Yeah? So, question at the back, just behind.
So, can you use the spirit body in the physical world to, like these futures that you have? Or
you can, but it's quite difficult, because if you think about it, the way these bodies are connected, there's a cord that connects the bodies. So in the case between the physical body and the spirit body, there's a silver cord. And that's not silver, obviously, that's red, just in case you're confused. But there's a silver cord between those two bodies. And that body transmits all of the information that is passed to the soul and to the spirit body's mind, goes via that cord. The cord starts in the base of just in your hypothalamus, the base of your brain, and goes down to the base of your spine, is where it's located. And when you die, that cord snaps. So there's no way of information anymore coming from your body to your spirit body or your soul once that cord snaps. So the only time you can get a person to breathe again, when a doctor revives a person on Earth, for example, it's because this cord has yet to snap. As soon as the cord snaps or breaks, it is no longer, the physical body is no longer viable. It can no longer be used by the soul, or the half of the soul in this case. Now, this cord passes all of the sensory information to the next layer. So the silver cord places all this sensory information that your body is collecting. So when the wind blows, you feel it on your hairs of your skin and so forth, and your body is measuring it, and those sensors all of that information gets passed through the silver cord into your spirit body. So your soul eventually also gets to experience the feeling of wind blowing on your skin, because all of that information is passed through. But there is certain amounts of information that don't pass through. An example of that is your brain, in your physical body, a large portion of its function is so that it can control your internal organs. So keep your heart beating, keep your liver functioning, keep your nervous system working, keep your cardiovascular system working, keep your hormonal system working as well, keeps these things working. And these things are instinctual to the body. Right? You don't have to learn them. They're just something that happens. And those instinctual functions are not passed from one to the other, but are able to be controlled by the higher level of bodies, or the soul. But the information is not passed from one body to the other. Does that make sense? Only the sensory information. So the sensory information would be, if my physical body has some pain, then that is passed. Does that make sense to you? So if an organ has some pain, that's past. But if the organ is just functioning normally, then that information is not past. This means that your spirit body's brain is not overwhelmed with a whole lot of unnecessary information. Because in your body, your physical body, there are literally millions of things going on at the same time. And if that information was passed and you had to feel everything, imagine if you had to tell yourself to breathe constantly. Like, breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out, you know, or now's the time to go to the toilet, you know. If you didn't have these things more automated, you can see life would become less, like, happy, wouldn't it? Because you'd be having to control a lot of functions that would otherwise just be automated and easy to occur and just natural to occur. So what eventually happens in all of this is the senses begin to dominate my experience on earth. So what I see, what I hear, what I taste, what I can touch, this begins to dominate my life on earth. And if I'm not conscious that there is a soul behind all of this, and I'm not conscious that my spirit body has other abilities, and my soul even has other more advanced abilities, if I'm not conscious of these things, I will become very, very dominant physically. I'll become focused on the physical world and life. Now, the more focused on your physical world and life you become, the more dominant you become with regard to how you use your mind. You just end up being in what I would classify as a mind-emotion cycle of the emotions measuring the senses and your mind responding to those senses. And if you're not careful, in that place you will ignore spiritual qualities. So, love is a spiritual quality. If you're not careful, if you use these senses in a way that is just to satisfy the senses, and that's it, you will eventually compromise issues of love. Now, an example of that is, let's say I love the taste of food. Who doesn't love the taste of food, right? So I love the taste of food so much that I decide I'm just going to eat all the foods that give my physical body an instant hit, an instant like sensory response. So those kind of foods are often foods that are very bad for you. So things like sugars and sweets, those kind of things. Salts, if we go too far there, it's the same. So what we end up doing is we end up deciding to eat poorly, as people would say on earth, eat out of harmony with the health of your body, because the senses are driving you to do that. And if you have no control over that, if you decide to have no control over that, can you see, I'm just going to get bigger, more and more unhealthy. Eventually I might die. My body might die from a disease caused by the lack of health. My teeth probably rot out of my head if I have too much sugars, for example. You know, I remember one of my sons actually did this. We gave our sons quite a degree of freedom, and one of my sons decided that he was going to buy, once he was 15 or 16 and started to earn a wage, he decided he was going to buy a stash of lollies and keep them in his side drawer of his bed. So he had his whole side drawer with 3 drawers stashed with chocolates and sweets, and so of course you know what happened after a few months of that, right? Everything with his teeth started decaying quite rapidly after that, right? And once he realised that, of course he started to then control his behaviour. But if it wasn't for him realising, he might have ended up with no teeth at 25, yeah, if he wasn't careful. So this is the thing, is what we do, you see. We become so sensorily dominant, and if we're not careful and we don't use our assessment, our self-awareness, which is actually a spiritual quality, if we don't use self-awareness, we'll eventually make decisions that are very damaging to our body and therefore our life on earth. And you see this happening all the time around the world, right? People dying all the time from what you would call self-caused illnesses and problems. And in fact, as the medical profession nowadays knows, that it's a major problem on earth. Huge amounts of cost to society is caused by people responding to their senses only and not being wise in the way in which they're used. Yeah. So we come to Mike here. Just need to pass it back here. Thanks.
The quality of self-awareness, does that come from the soul or the spirit body?
It's when we first arrive on Earth, in other words, when we're first conceived, we have no self-awareness. And then it's a quality that we develop naturally through experience. Does that make sense? So we're not gifted with the quality, we're gifted with the potential of the quality. So what God's done with many of our qualities of the soul, of which self-awareness is one, they are we're gifted with the potential of learning it, but not with the quality itself. So another example of that is morals, like what is right and wrong. We're gifted with the potential of learning what is right and wrong, but not with the sensitivity to what is right and wrong. We've got to learn it. So there's a whole list of qualities you could say from your soul, and this is very important for tomorrow's discussion, that you can develop. But then there's a whole heap of things that are gifted to the soul right from the beginning. And some of those things are its senses, such as seeing, hearing, tasting, touching. These senses are present in the body right from, and the soul too, by the way, and each body, and each. Remember, I said every time you go to a new body, you get a greater experience of it. So here, our physical sense of touch, when you compare it to what it is in the spirit world, the spirit the spirit body is so much more sensitive to touch than the physical body is, and so and the soul is even more sensitive again to touch, to feeling things from its environment. So there are qualities that you could say are instinctual or instinct, of which these senses are see, hearing, tasting. You've still got to develop them, because out of speaking, out of seeing and hearing, you get language, don't you? If you couldn't hear anything, there would be probably, how would you formulate your words to structure a language? So you can see that some of these senses are necessary in order for you to structure language and other actions, but they are still instinctual in the sense that they were gifted to you from the beginning, and you're basically just learning how to use them. And then there's other things that you must develop, which the potential of it is in you to learn it, but you may not learn it. So qualities that you need to develop are very, very different from the qualities that are instinctual to the soul. Follow me so far? Yep. So you can see that with the instinctual qualities, you can also see that some are related to like the soul's, you could say its immense abilities, but a subset of it for each body. So for example, the soul has a sense to see, it can actually see anything below the 36th sphere or the 36th dimension of the spirit world in every dimension under the 36. So in terms of mathematics, I think they have got supercomputers on Earth now that can calculate things up to the 13th dimension or something like that. So we're talking like another 23 dimensions on top of that, which is what the soul is experiencing. The soul can mathematically handle that, can mathematically handle the computations involved in that, and a lot of those things are actually instinctual to the soul. And so the soul has these immense abilities, instinctual abilities, but also a number of abilities that must grow over time, that must be developed. And the most important qualities that are to be developed are the ones that are spiritual, what I'd classify as spiritual. And these include things like truth, moral development, love, development in compassion and understanding and kindness, humility, development in your ability to experience and your freedom to experience and understanding your perspective in the world. And things like faith, which is a very, very important quality actually of the soul, which allows you to perceive the future and aim for a future even though you've never seen it. These qualities are developed qualities. They're not gifted to you from the beginning. The potential of them is gifted to you. Now, on top of that, so these are sort of perfect natural human qualities, but then on top of that, there was this additional function given to your soul, two functions given to your soul. The first one is the function of the conscience, which is the ability of your soul to connect to God's soul to receive truth. In other words, to be able to determine what is right and wrong, right? That's the ability of the conscience. And then there's another potential given to the soul, which God can open and close, and that is the ability to receive God's love. Now, we'll call that the ability to connect to what's called the Holy Spirit, which I called the Holy Spirit in the first century. It's a connector that is in your soul that allows God's soul to transmit not only love but other qualities of God to your soul so that your soul can receive them. So the conscience is the ability for God to share truth with you, and the Holy Spirit is the conduit via which God is providing the ability to receive other things from God to you, of which the very first thing is love, God's love, not your own, God's. Right? Now, these things, while they are potentials in you, they must be developed. And both of these things, your interactions with God, are going to need to be developed if you want to have a relationship with God. Right? And so obviously there are things that we want to, in the future, talk more about, because they will enable you to actually receive, firstly, information from God, but more importantly, receive substances from God, such as love. Love is actually, comes via the Holy Spirit, is actually a substance that exists in God's soul that God has given you for the period of time since my arrival in the first century to now, has given you the ability to receive it into your soul. Right? And God, you must understand too, that conscience, while it's a gift God has given you, it's a gift God has given everyone without you asking for it. Just like he gave you an earth to live on, you didn't ask for it, but he gave it to you. You know? So there's other things that he's done for you. He gave you the sense of sight. You didn't ask for it, but he gave it to you. He gave you the sense of hearing. All the senses fall into this category. They're all gifts that God gave to us, but we didn't ask for them. Now, he gave us a sense of taste. Imagine if he didn't give that. Everything would taste maybe like a potato. Now, potatoes are not bad because I personally like them quite a lot. But if you're eating them every day for your entire life, but he could have, couldn't he? He could have said, right, potato, I put all the vitamins and minerals and everything else that you need to survive in one fruit or one fruit of the earth, right? I give you that and that's what you eat. And the only plant on earth is a potato. That's it. He could have done that, couldn't he? Like, pretty basic and fundamental that would have been, but he could have done it. He could have given you a potato and said, that's your life, man. And I'm sure after you've had a few thousand of them in a row, you'd be quite disappointed with that, maybe. But he could have done that, but he didn't. He gave you variety because he knows what brings joy. He created taste to bring you joy, and then he created a whole heap of things, like fruits, vegetables and other things, to give you the variety of experience for that joy to continue. Is that... You see, so he created the taste buds. The mechanism of taste actually exists in the soul, and he created that so you can experience the joy of different tastes. And then he not only did that, but he also created the variety of fruits and vegetables and other things that we can enjoy, so that your taste buds go, I love that. You know, like so if you see me eat, many of you might be a bit shocked at how I eat, because it's not. But as Mary knows, I'm pretty expressive when I eat, because I love what the tastes are. And isn't it? It brings you joy in life, doesn't it? The taste of things. Now, if God created no taste buds, then even if he didn't create all potatoes for you to eat, you'd still taste it,
like
and you think,
potatoes.
and they will taste like potatoes. So, because it'd be maybe not even any taste. Imagine that. What would drive you to eat if there was no taste? Yeah, well, hunger. But let's say he didn't give you the sense of hunger. You'd have to time yourself when you go, midday, time to eat. 6 o'clock, time to eat. It'd be pretty complicated, I think. Majority of us would probably not eat because there's nothing driving us to. There's no sense driving us to. And so what would you do? It's interesting when you contemplate the life of an animal, really, isn't it? Because there must be taste they like. So he even created taste buds for them for that purpose, to drive them to eat. So if you're an elephant in Africa and you see a certain fruit on a tree, you go, you know, like, that's what I have to eat. Because if he didn't do that, why would they eat? There'd be no physiological function driving to them, you see. So God created these things to drive us to do things, to have experience. Now, not only did he do that for our animal body, but he connected those senses to the soul, so that you could enjoy and have some level of self-awareness about the issue as well. So unlike an animal, we can assess it. We can talk about it like we're doing now. Feel about how beautiful it is. See, an animal, when the elephant's eating, say, a mango, he's not going, oh, how beautiful is this? Now, his taste buds are and signalling to his brain that he likes it, but he can't assess it. There's no self-awareness there. He can't measure it. There's no way of him now making, like, all he knows is looking like that, tastes good, but he does not even assessing it from that point of view. He's just sensorily assessing it and doing it because it in the moment. And it also is interesting with animals too when you watch them, isn't it? Because if there's a tree of mangoes, he'll eat the whole thing. He won't save one for tomorrow. You know? See, humans can assess things and go, if I eat the whole thing today, there'll be none tomorrow, but I would like one tomorrow. So I'll save one for tomorrow, right? A human is that self-aware. An animal is not that self-aware. In our home, we have, lots of animals, kangaroos, possums, koalas, sugar gliders, birds. Whenever there's a fruit or something available to them, it's just gone within... and also with us, we can go, here's a whole mango, let's eat the whole mango. See, with an animal, they'll eat a little bit of that one, 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 to their own detriment, because they end up spoiling all of them, and then they all go rotten and they don't want to eat them anymore. But as humans, we know, because we've got self-awareness, you see, we can go, if I do that, I'm wasting them. I've got a measure of economy in me, which is another developed quality. But also, initially, there's a link there with my senses where I can go, if I do that, I won't have any for tomorrow. So I want some for tomorrow, so I shouldn't do that. I should save some. Yeah? That's not an animal thing to do. That's driven by some level of self-awareness. So there's all these areas of life where there are instinctual patterns that drive some of our behaviour, or some of our facilities that exist in our soul but also in our two bodies.
Or faculties, you mean?
Sorry?
Faculties.
Faculties, you could say. They're faculties. They're instinctual in their nature in the sense that they operate without our governance, seemingly governance, you know. There are obviously things that control their operations, but the majority of us are not saying, turn on my eyes, turn off my eyes, turn on my eyes, turn off my eyes, or turn on my ear, turn off my ear, that kind of thing. We do, and many of you do detune out of things, right, don't you? You notice yourself doing that. Like when there's a heavy noise, you can go on for an hour or two and you find yourself almost hardly even hearing it. It's like when you go to Barbados, if you ever do, you'll find the crickets there are so loud you can hardly hear yourself talk, right? That's how loud they are. And you find yourself after 3 or 4 days talking away, and there's all this racket around you, and like you're still talking. When I first went there, I was going, "What did you say? What did you say?" Like they're so loud. It's like somebody talking at the top of their voice, and yet after a few days, you zone that out. You're able to tune these things, these senses in and out, right, quite easily. That's a function of the bodies and their abilities to zone into things, tune out of things. But when it comes to the qualities that we need to develop, by the way, you can also tune out of those and tune into those. When it comes to those qualities, these qualities are more spiritual in nature in the sense that they're a way, they influence the things you think about. They influence the things you feel about. They influence the decisions of what you make of who to love and why you love them and how you love them and things like that. These are qualities that need to grow over time, but they begin in a very undeveloped state and only with the potential. That make sense? So you want to ask? Yep. So up to back. Sorry, you're...
Alex?
No, not Alex. Behind
Maya.
two back. Maya.
Maya.
Maya. Sorry.
Yeah, on that. So we have the, like when the soul is created, there's a potential for some qualities. And then let's say it's my soul and I develop that quality. Is it like a thing? Because love is also like a substance, right? So do I develop like the thing where the love can pour in, or do I develop...
No, the facility or faculty of the soul that allows love in and allows it out is actually an inbuilt instinctual faculty. But you deciding to allow how much you allow in and how much you allow out and what type of love you have, because there's lots of different types of love, that is under your control. So an example of that is how much love you have for your children might be different to how much you have for your husband. And that might be different to how much you have for your mum and dad. And it's a different kind of love. And then how much love you have for yourself has to be worked out in all of that as well. So, and the feelings that come about from the expression of that love and the intensity of that love, they have to be developed. But the ability to receive love and give it is an instinctual part of your soul.
And the love itself, is it like God's love, so it's a substance that's floating around?
It's like God's love in the sense that it's a substance, but it comes from your soul, not from God's. It's something that you have the ability to develop in its strength or you have the ability to suppress it, because the use of your will determines how much you suppress it or grow it. So an example of that is I can be effusive, like expressive in my feelings of love towards Mary, or I could be just like, you know, hi there, darling, how are you? You know, like, now, obviously, if I'm, hi there, darling, how are you, type of thing, it does sound like I'm quite bored, right? And it does sound like, you know, there's not a lot of love coming out of me when I express it like that. But when I'm expressive, my expression will involve my feelings, which is a soul quality. And the power of those feelings is developed, not automatic. So how much power there is in those feelings will be up to me. And then there's also my expression in terms of how I express it sensorily. So talk to Mary, say, I love her, you know, I love you. Or hug her, right? Or pick her up and carry her to bed. Or, do you know what I mean? These are all expressions of the power, you could say, of my love for her, aren't they?
Yes.
Yep. And I can suppress that or even make it go away completely. This is what happens with a lot of relationships, isn't it? At the beginning, they're like all over each other, right? But 2 years later, it's like, can we get a divorce? You know? And if you don't feel like you can, then it's like, I've got to live with her for the rest of my life. What?
So the love you have for her, that's in you. And the amount of how much you express, that's like a different topic. So
That's also in me.
okay, but you could have like a lot of love for her and then not express it? Or is it always like...
Well, see, this is the thing about these soul qualities is, and this is what I notice on earth, there's a lot of allowances made for bad behaviour when they go, oh, but they really love you. And I'm going, but actually it's not expressed. So is there really love? You see, the trouble with a lot of love on earth is that the person may have some love, but it's also tainted with a lot of fear and anger and regrets from the past and sadness from the past and other relationships and fears about other relationships. And so in the end, the power of what's expressed is going to be very minimal, but also it means that the love that's in is very minimal. Right? There is really no such thing as, I've got all this love, but I can only give a little. When you've got all this love, you'll find yourself giving a lot. Yeah. So if you're not giving much, then it means there's not much there. And you can change that because it's your love. It's your expression. It's your power of expression. That's different than you receiving love from God. Because what happens then is the soul, and this is the thing about the God relationship, is this soul changes from the perfect natural human soul to be a divine soul. And what I mean by that is that the soul now has extra power, extra abilities that weren't there before.
And that's because the quality of God's love is different.
Is changing your soul.
Okay, and that's something that like I wouldn't have in myself if he wouldn't give it to me.
That's right. And you would never have if God didn't give it. You would never have it. And also, of course, it's not just about God giving it, because God's not going to give it without you asking, because he honours your will. So he's not going to say, oh, I think I'll give you some love just for the hell of it. Just for, just because I want to, just because I can. And by the way, he could, couldn't he? But if he did so, he'd break his own law of free will, which he would never do. So, of course, he has enough power to give you love if you didn't want it, but he's not going to do it because he respects your power. He respects your will. He gave you that gift of will. He wants you to use it. Yeah?
Yes. Can I ask one more question?
Sure you can.
Because what I'm actually concerned about is, I think, like, sin. Like, if I saw your soul and I was like a spirit and I could see your soul, then I would see the love in there, like a substance lying around?
Yes, no. It depends on your development as how much you would see.
If I was very high.
Yes.
Then I could see it.
Yep.
It wouldn't be like flying around. It would be more expressed in the spirit body.
The signs of it existing, because it's a spiritual quality that comes from God. The signs of it existing are expressed physically in the soul itself and therefore in its bodies. But you have to be in a union state, in the soul union state, to actually see it flowing through the soul.
Okay.
Right?
And then sin is the absence of love.
Yes.
So,
Or you could say really the disharmony with law as well, isn't it? The law being love. Yep.
so it's not an actual thing. It's more like,
No, it is a thing,
so like,
but it's a human creation.
but can I see it in your soul?
Yeah,
Yeah.
you
And
can.
Is it just the, like, if you'd say love was light, then sin is like the absence of light? Or is it its own sort of substance?
Yes, it's its own substance. It has different colours, not just black. Black is one of the colours, but there are other colours. There's like if you have rage, it's a very dark, browny red colour that comes out of your soul. So you see it. You see it. As soon as you meet the person and you can see that colour, you know they're angry. Yeah. Shame, different colour coming out of soul, different places of the physical spirit body it comes out of too. And so if it's sexual shame, you'd see it coming out of the second here. And you would see it as a colour coming out of that location. It's a distorted colour of rose. But it's not. It's dark and muddy and dirty colour. Quite unpleasant to look at, actually. And that comes out of that area. And you know, sexual shame exists in that person.
But it is an actual substance that you do actually release.
Yeah. It's got a smell too. Has a smell. Every sin has a smell. To your spirit body.
That's good.
And not, fortunately not to your earth body, because otherwise you'd be, everybody pongs, you know.
Well, that's what it's like when a really developed spirit
comes.
kind of comes to the earth.
He's got to turn off
kind
his...
of yucky. Yeah.
He's got to turn off his nasal senses to have your company. True, yeah, he does. He just zones out of it, you know. He wants to spend time in your company. He wants to help you. Love drives him, so love is a more powerful quality. And so if you're a bit smelly, he just puts up with it. But he sort of zones out. He doesn't let it into his sense. He blocks it from entering his sense. So it's sort of like creating you could almost like it like creating a force field that stops smells coming around yourself, unless you select them. So, yeah, every spirit of particularly good development has that. Yep.
What's the concern of the question, Maya?
What's the concern?
Yeah.
What's the question, really?
What's really driving the question?
Yeah.
I think initially the question was like, does God give us the things, or are they like floating around and we sort of pick them up, you know, like water, like truths or something? Everything I know, like, did he at some point give it to me, or did he just like put it out there and allowed me to take it whenever I want?
Yeah, good question.
It is a good question.
He gave your soul the ability to experience, but you have to put yourself in experience in order to have it. So an example of that, he gave your soul the ability to love, but you've got to put yourself in experience where you can love before you express that love.
And you have to develop the desire for it. It's
That's
like
right.
when you learnt maths. You had to kind of seek the knowledge that already existed, and then it
It's already
became
out
yours. And you had experience with it, and now you know certain mathematical things are correct. It's the same thing. You have to seek it and desire it. That's an expression of your will, and then it becomes a part of you.
Yeah. So God gave you all the ability to be mathematicians, all the ability to be scientists, all the ability to be, you know, excellent linguists, all of these different abilities. Whether we exercise the desire as to whether that will happen.
But your love, for example, is something that you generate in yourself if you desire to. So it's not something that you get from out there and put in you and then you can give it to someone else.
And the power of your love is going to depend on how much you have in you and or how much you also want to gift to others. So, yep. So we come down here next. Alex has a mic next to him, sorry.
So in regards to responsibility,
Yep.
the instinctive qualities, it's actually God's responsibility, and the developing qualities are in our responsibility. Can I say?
When you say, with regard to instinct, responsibility, really God designed them to be implicit in the design. So you could say that God is responsible for them being there, but God's not responsible for how they're utilised or used. So an example of that, Alex, is you can use your eyesight to look after your own safety, can't you? Like driving along in a vehicle, there's a problem, swerve out of that. You can do that with your eyesight. Or you could use your eyesight to look at a whole heap of naked women. Yes. Couldn't you? Yep. And obviously one of them's morally sound, your safety. The other one's not so morally sound because you're probably sexually projecting at all these women and also not considering why they're all naked in front of you and what caused them to be that and what caused them to want to do that, and you're not considering quite a lot of things when you do that. So again, your eyesight, you can say, is the instinct to use it, but how you use it, obviously there are soul qualities you need to develop in terms of what you're going to look at and what you're not going to look at. You follow me? Yeah. So if you think of every sense we've been given, all of those senses, you could say they're instinctual in terms of the gift, but in terms of the usage, it's going to be dependent, isn't it, upon your condition as to how you utilise them. So an example of that is in the world today, there are a lot of so-called spiritual men or women, mostly men though, who are using their ability to speak, their ability to formulate language, which is a combination of hearing, brain, the ability to voice something, and they're using that ability to incite violence in others. So you see this happening a lot in different faiths, Christian faith, Muslim faith, other faiths, where there's these religious leaders and they're using their abilities to incite violence, to encourage violence towards other groups of people. Obviously, that is very unloving and a poor use of the gift of an instinctual gift, but one that they're developing and using in a very unloving manner. Make sense to you?
Yes. Can I make one additional?
Sure.
So if I think I want to engineer some so-called free energy device.
Yep.
I think of maybe God didn't make me to be like that, but you just said I could if I take the time and everything and effort to figure it out.
If you were truly loving, though, you'd consider all of the ramifications of your decision, wouldn't you?
Sure, but I don't have any non-abilities in my soul which I can't do that then. So
you'd have to develop them.
I have to develop, and everybody can, as you say.
Anybody can, yeah. Okay. All of you are scientists on the making.
Yeah.
Many of you will find... What a lot of people find is that it's only after they pass into the spirit world and once they've gotten rid of a lot of their sadness in the spirit world, they start developing things that they never developed on earth, and they start becoming scientists and they start becoming mathematicians and musicians, and they start becoming things that they were restricted from becoming on earth for lots of different reasons, and they realise, God's given me these things that I can develop, but I never developed them on earth. And this is why the spirit world for a lot of people is a lot happier than their life on earth. Because on earth, you think about it, the majority of us have been severely repressed in our childhood experience. We're being taught that we're limited beings. We've been taught that we don't have the capacity to do a lot of things. And many of us are taught it depending on whether we're male or female as well. So like many women are taught, can't be an engineer. You're better off being a mother. How strange is that? Sort of like, just because your body is made where you can carry a child, why would you think the role of being a mother is actually something to aspire to? Any woman can be a mother.
Well, that's instinct, isn't it?
That's instinct. Like, making it so important that you suppress all of your other desires, that's pretty bad, actually. Yeah, and most women, of course, many women historically have passed from the earth, and their only role on earth was to be a sexual partner and a mother. And food and feed and mostly feed and clothe their children. That was their only role. So you imagine when they hit the spirit world, they're going, there's all these other things that I'm fascinated about, that I could have learnt about and I never did, and I was restricted from learning, a lot of times by men, in this case, but they're restricted from learning. So now they've got the opportunity in the spirit world. Of course, what are they going to do? They're going to learn all those things. They want to discover that and look at that. And so a lot of people who have had a suppressed life on earth end up going, there's all these things I could discover. But it often takes them many hundreds of years to get to that point, which is sad, because they've had a suppressed life on earth. It often takes them many hundreds of years to work through all of the, restrictions that have been placed upon their soul, to the point where they feel they have a degree of freedom to learn new things.
Yeah. So I guess my question was then, did God make archetypes of souls, actually?
No. God made individuals. Each of you are uniquely individual. That's why I called the process of incarnating individualization. It's one of the reasons why I termed that for it was because I want all of you to understand, and God wants you all to understand, you are unique individuals. Stop thinking in the terms of archetypes or models or groups of people. All of that stuff is completely... It's what may occur when two individuals have similar desires and they naturally get together because they've got a similar desire. But it's not something that God planned, that you have a sort of archetype of, I don't know, I can't even think of them, to be
Mountain
honest. Mountain men or something. And then, so now all the other mountain men and you are really all joined together in some way.
That just freed me now. I feel more freedom now.
Yeah. You are an individual with individual desires and passions, and in fact, you are uniquely individual. I have never met ever. I should clarify that. Except for soulmates, I have never met two people the same. Again. Ever. The whole time I've been alive. 2,000 years. There's people I know have been alive 150,000 years, right? They've never met two people the same. And it's pretty encouraging, actually, isn't it? Yeah. I think. Let's go.
Then how I understand, we can change our quality and quantity of our own love just by desire. Yeah.
Let's just for a moment talk about desire, because it's important to understand. Desire is really, if you think about desire, it's an aspect of this quality of faith. Faith has many subparts, and desire is one of the subparts of faith. Desire is, I recognise that something is possible for my future. Now, I also see its, and I also come to see its value. And once I recognise it's possible and also feel it is of value, now my desire builds and I have some faith that I'll be able to achieve that thing. I'll be able to grasp it, make it mine. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yep.
When I was young, I think I had so much love for world, everything, like more than now. But I have desire all my life to like grow in love.
Yep.
But I don't know why now I don't feel that like when I was young.
Well, it's quite obvious why that would have happened, because if you think about your desire, so this is a desire you had when you were young, to sort of feel expressive in your love. But what happens to it? What does society do with it? A lot of people make fun of a person who is expressive lovingly. Like, if you had heard how many times I've been made fun of about my love for Mary, it's like people are pretty nasty at times. Like, there's been people at groups say, "Oh, he's kissing her now." We
don't need to see
We don't need to see any of that. Like, you know what I mean? That kind of thing. I'm going, I don't care whether you need to see it or not. I'm doing it. So that's how it is. I love her. This is one of my expressions of love for her. I'm going to do it. So, but as a child, that's not how it is it? When you start to try to do something that society or family frowns upon, you then feel you have to back off or you have to suppress the driving force for that thing. Yeah? And this is the damage that happens that you can feel, right? The damage happens, and so the desire existed, but now due to usually criticism, attack, and right away it can be even to violence, the desire gets pushed down. And the very worst thing that happens is that you start doing it to yourself. So not only is like the rest of the world doing it to you, but you're now, because you feel like you need to fit into the rest of the world, and you feel like, if I don't fit into the rest of the world, then it's going to hurt, the world will hurt me. We start pushing down, suppressing the desire. So the desire goes lower. We can sort of, a lot of times, still feel the spark of desire within us, but now we've suppressed it for 20 years. From early childhood or from middle childhood right the way through to the age we are now, we've taught ourselves to suppress it, to fit in, to fit in with what the world views as normal or real. And in suppressing it, what we've done is detuned ourselves from it. And that's it's sort of the opposite of developing it, isn't it? We're suppressing it instead of developing it, right? So the reality is, with every quality that we potentially can have, you can either develop it positively so that it increases in its intensity and its passion, or you can suppress it qualitatively and in measure so that it goes worse and worse and gets more and more suppressed, and you get more. And also in this process you're going to get more unhappy as well, because a lot of happiness comes from the expressions of desire, comes from the expressions of love, So the unhappiness increases as we suppress more and more. And this is why in society we often live in, there's a huge amount of suppression. One of the things we noticed here in Austria is really interesting, because what we see in a lot of people is they have all of these, like you could say, percolating like emotions, but there's this real austere, like, I don't have that feeling, while at the same time they're projecting it out, and a lot of times in rage, and so it's really interesting when you feel people here. There's obviously quite a lot of suppression that's happened over their lives for lots of different reasons, and what happens is they have these sort of things they would like to express, but feel they're not allowed to in polite society to express them. And the result of that is that they all get projected, but nobody admits to it. So we're at the shopping centre, Mary and I are just getting some fruit, and the lady behind us is sort of pushing our gear out of the way and putting her stuff down. We're in front of her in the line, by the way, and she's pushing it away, getting her stuff, and she says to me, it's too heavy to carry. I'm going, no, that's not why you're doing this. You can feel in her this, get out of my way, get out of my way. This feeling coming out of her, which she not owning up to. Yeah, and then the checkout operator is going clonk, 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 clonk with the gear. And it's like, pack faster, but she's not saying it. It's like, she's just, piling it on, like, she can see we're trying to pack as fast, there's two of us trying to pack as fast as we can, and she's still piling it on, like, whoa, 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 whoa. And it's like, and it's things, and making it harder for us to actually pack faster. And this all happened in one checkout line, and we're going, wow, there's all this projected stuff, but they're not even allowed to say it. That's how suppressed it is. I'm not allowed to even say, get a move on, If it was me in the checkout, if I felt that way, which I never would, but if I did, I'd say, get a move on, I'd voice it at least, But there's so much, all of this hidden stuff going on, and yet, and you're feeling it, because you can feel it, right? When you're in checkout and this operator's going like this, and you're trying to pack it fast, and she's got all this stuff going, and she's looking at you like, you can feel it, but so there is an actual transaction going on at the soul level, feeling-wise, emotion, getting transmitted from her soul to yours, and if you accept it, I worked out, just smiled at Mary and said, wow, that was pretty interesting experience at our first checkout it was just a shop down here in Innsbruck.
No, it wasn't. It
wasn't?
Was at Tyrrell, was it?
Oh, it was Tyrrell, sorry.
Not Tyrrell.
Where you guys
village,
are. Where are you?
Iglis.
Yeah. Anyway, it was that. It was this. What was the brand of the shop? Spa. That's right. Anyway,
and now we've dobbed them in on the.
It doesn't matter what shop really, but it was just like the guys recommended we go and get some fruit and veg. It was our first day we arrived here, and we just caught up with Alex and Olga just so we could touch bases and everything, and went to get the food, and it's like taste of Austria in emotion, and it's not unique to Austria, obviously, is it? But something like that is very rare to happen in Australia, interesting enough. So the reason for that is that each culture has its own problems, right? In Australia, it's like, check that one, check that one, check that one. A bit more relaxed, right? And many of you would say, far too relaxed. And that's because each culture has its own emotional injuries. In Australia, there's a fair bit of I don't really care about much, and that tends to be pregnant in everything everybody does. So, but these are emotional expressions occurring without even voicing them, is my point. And we're taught at a young age, rather than developing qualities, a lot of the qualities that we would like to develop or that are good to develop, we're actually taught to suppress them, right? And so in that process, we're suppressing this beautiful quality. Faith is a beautiful quality to develop, desire, and a part of faith is passion, hunger for the future, things like that, all part of faith, and beautiful qualities to develop from a human perspective, because they'll motivate you to get things done in your future, and also to desire things that are beyond your own imagination right now. That's the quality of faith. It's a beautiful quality, and yet we're suppressing it right, soon after birth, where it's getting suppressed. So you can see that's the reason why sometimes it feels like I've got some things in me, but they're so buried in there that getting them out again is going to be an issue. Getting them out again is going to be difficult, and this is why we need to have tomorrow talk, because we want to talk about how to get them out. How do I connect to them, get them out, and also how do I just give up the fear that I have that stops me from getting them out. That's a big issue. Fear is a very, very dangerous emotion, actually, to your future. It's the main reason why the hells exist, actually. The fear is the main reason why hell exists. Fear is a dangerous emotion for your future, because not only in your fear will you choose to do things that damage yourself or restrict yourself, but in the end you will do things to harm others as well, in your fear as well. So, and then there will be subsequent soul-based restrictions because of the law, because you acted in your fear. So fear is something you've got to learn to feel, but never act upon. Feel, but never do it, you know. So we've got to talk a bit about fear tomorrow, obviously, don't we? Yeah. All right, now where were we? There was some, so just here, I think.
And what about this lady on the left here?
Yes, yep.
Just keep your hand up so Elsa can see where to bring. Yep. Just keep your hand. Yep.
Yeah, Elsa's here.
Okay.
So if I would have a loving desire to do something, while I suppress it, would you say like I have developed in some aspect of love but not in others? So I have some love in me, but or I just can't, like we were talking about before, the people have some love in them. I'm not sure. So I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm still not sure what.
Are you asking if I have a loving desire but I don't act on it? Do I have love in me, or have I developed some love?
Yes.
Is that the question?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, brutal truth, shall we?
No such thing.
No such thing. All truth is very good for you. Let's look at that. If I have, let's say in my soul, so here's me, in my soul, my feelings, I have a sort of a, let's say, that much love. Right? That's a good thing, isn't it? Because having less than that would be worse. Right. Yeah. So that's a good thing if I got that much love, isn't it? At least I got some love. Right? Now, if I choose to deny the expression of it, can you see I'm putting something quite dangerous on top of the love? Fear. So let's say the green was love, and it's interesting to draw it green because love is always about go. You know, like it's like whenever you love something, you're very motivated to go and do. You go to take action, to do a positive thing in harmony with the love you feel, right? Fear is about stop, right? So fear is stop, suppress, don't do it. Something bad will happen, right? Now, the only reason why, if I had some spark of love inside of me and I don't express it, the only reason why I would do that is because I'm afraid, isn't it? Now, can you see that if I deal with the fear emotionally and let it go, but still act in love, still act in harmony with the love that I feel, then that's going to help me a lot. But if I choose to let the fear dominate my choice, it now looks like the love doesn't exist. Isn't that true? From all external experiences, I now am not doing the very thing I love or would love to do. Right? So my fear is now dominating my choice. It's dominating to the point that it makes it look like the love doesn't exist. Even though it may exist, it's making it look like it doesn't. Now, there are laws that respond to what is inside of you, and there's also laws about what you choose to do with what's inside of you. So one group of laws just work on what's inside of you, and then one group of laws work on what you do with what's inside of you. In other words, the actions you take based on what's inside of you. So I can have fear inside of me, but choose to not listen to it. Or I can have love inside of me and choose to not listen to it. Or I can have both love and fear inside of me and choose to let the fear dominate the love. And the results of what I do will be measured by the law. So obviously, if I just let the love out and just express it in its full passion without the fear dominating me, that's going to have a powerful effect, isn't it? Even if it's that amount of love. So it's going to have a powerful effect if I let it out, if I express it, if I voice it, feel it, act upon it, let it drive my will into action. It's going to have a powerful effect on anyone around me. So, let's say, I love Mary, but I'm afraid that she's going to feel like reject me. She's not going to want me, that she probably doesn't like things about me, I'm 60. Why would anybody like me now? When I was 30, I looked a lot better. So I might worry about that, right? So I worry about that. And now I'm letting the fear dominate my feelings, right? And so I'm letting the fear dominate love. And what am I going to do? I'm possibly not going to act. Now, she doesn't know that all this is going on inside of me, and unless she's very sensitive, she won't know. Right? Now, of course, she can get to the stage where she is sensitive, but let's say she's not. So she doesn't know that I love her. And I've loved her for years, and let's say we've known each other for 10 years, and I've never said to her, I love her. Right? This happens, happens. And I think about her all the time. And I've thought about her all the time for 10 years. And I would love to be with her, but my fear is stopping my expression of love. Can you see I've disabled her from even making a choice? She doesn't even know that I love her. Right? She doesn't even know that I care about her. She doesn't even know that. But if I loved and my fear wasn't dominating me, surely I'd just go up and say, Mary, I've loved you for 10 years. Now, I know you don't have to make any choice and decisions about that, but I wanted you to know I've loved you for 10 years. I would love to spend the rest of my life with you. Right? Now, she might say no, and then what might I have to feel?
Sad.
For 10 years. Like I might have tears to feel and sadness to feel. Can you see my fear is saying, what if I might have sadness? Well, that would be bad. So, but the opposite is also true. She might say, I've loved you for the last 5 as well. And none of us have been willing to even say it. Right? And so she may react completely differently. I don't know. Right? And most of us are not that sensitive to know. So in the process of expressing my love, I have enabled opportunity.
For me and you.
For both of us. In the process of suppressing my love with fear, I have disabled opportunity for both of us. Right? Can you see fear now became my dominating decision-making process? And why was I afraid? I was afraid of some future feeling. The potential of a future feeling, even. Wasn't I? The potential that I might be sad. So I'm afraid of a future feeling that I'm not even really having now, and yet I'm afraid of it. If you think about it, it makes no logical sense to do this. But our emotions of fear are not logical. In fact, fear is false appearing real, right? It's falsehood appearing like it's true. And what's truth? Truth is logical. Falsehood is illogical, right? And yet, in our heart, in our feelings, when we encounter fear, it's like we're encountering the end of the world. And it stops us from taking positive actions. So it's a huge impediment to love, fear is. So can you see, even the small little bit of love, while it's good, so the question was, there's all this feeling in me, but I don't do anything with it, right? What is the net result? The net result is it's like you're not having it at all. And that's the danger. You need to learn to act upon positive emotion. Always act upon. Always act upon. Never stop it. Ever. 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 Ever.
So I just want to ask a follow-up question, but I think that you kind of answered that, because I want to ask, to grow that love and act upon that love and not grow to living in fear. Basically just do it more and just feel the fear and do it.
Yeah, the fear is in you. The better thing for it to happen is to let it out, because see, at the moment while it's in you, the next time you go to love, you're going to encounter the same fear again. And if I don't let the fear go completely, the next time I encounter fear, I will have to do the same thing again, and the next time I encounter the same thing again. So let's say Mary and I decide, we want to have a child. So let's say we have gotten together, because I had enough bravery to say...
After 10 years.
I love you after 10 years, and she says, yeah, and we get married even, or whatever we decide to do, live together if that's your thing. And we have a child. Well, we're contemplating having a child. And I'm going, gee, child,
What if I mess it up?
What if I mess it up? My dad wasn't very nice, and, I don't know how much love I've got in me to be able to, love a child. And, there's a whole heap of things I don't know about bringing up a child, the little helpless things. And, now I've got another opportunity to love, and fear is now dominating that one. And it might be exactly the same fear that dominated the last one. If I release the fear, then once the fear is gone from my soul, now every new choice and decision to love is not governed by fear. Now there's more freedom to love in the moment without going... the beauty of love, if it's properly felt and expressed, is that it's instant. It's just like, I feel it, I act. I feel it, I act. I want to give Mary a hug, give her a hug, And, if Mary doesn't want a hug, that's fine. I'm not going to force it on her or anything, but if I want to do it, I'll try to do it. And if she says no, get away. So, okay. You act upon your feelings. Now, fear causes you to delay action. And not only just to delay it, but to delay it 50 years. That's the problem with it. So unless it's out of you, it's going to keep on having its impression upon you. So this is where it's very important to, when you're developing your loves, to release your unloving states, to let them go, to process through them. And it's an emotional process, but you've got to let them go. If you don't let them go, they will continue to dominate your actions and your thoughts. And you won't be able to even control it half the time, because it'll be an immediate, but you should be afraid, but you should be afraid, but you should be afraid, coming back at you all the time. That makes sense? Yep. So it's very important to start going, fear is an emotion I can release, but I need to stop believing it's true. Stop believing it's true. In my experience with Mary, if I withhold due to my fear, it's because I believe my fear has value. So if I've loved it for 10 years and I don't say anything, I believe my fear is more important than my love. I'm placing it as a higher priority than the love I have. I'm saying, what I'm afraid of matters more to me than what I love. Yeah? And this is where you've got to be very careful, because if you put fear as your priority and you make what you fear more important than what you love, now your whole life is going to be governed by fear rather than love. Right? And that's going to be a major impediment to the joy and happiness of your life. And this is why there's so many unhappy people on earth. Because they have some loves, but their fears are driving almost every decision and choice they make. And the only result of that is going to be more unhappiness. Yeah? And there are laws, in fact, that govern how much fear you decide to act upon and how much unhappiness you're going to have. The more fear you act upon, the more unhappiness you are guaranteed to have. It's very important to understand that. Yeah?
Thank you.
Good. Just in front of you. Yeah. And then...
maybe Fabian...
Oh, sorry, we're going up the back first.
But is yours related to this?
Yours related to this, Fab?
It's about love and how do you express it.
Right. And what was your question about?
It's also related.
Okay, let's go for yours first, because you had the mic in your hand first.
Okay. So I feel pretty afraid.
Yes?
Yeah, I guess you actually answered my question before when you answered his and hers.
Yeah. Yes.
But I have a follow-up question to that. So sometimes I guess I'm not sure if what I'm feeling is love or just a desire to act in addiction.
Yep.
And yeah, I thought just now, well, I could just experiment and then afterwards I could see what the love compensation would show me.
True, but my experience has been if I think something is loving and I act upon it and it works out it's not loving, then I'm going to have some pain. I don't know about you, but I don't like pain very much. So I would prefer to work out whether it is loving or not.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
So you mean just give it a try? Or
No.
Okay, then I don't
Because
understand.
when you act in addiction, there's already pain that you're trying to avoid. And Jesus is saying, so there's already pain you're trying to avoid, then you act in the addiction, you create more pain, and then you get to more like what we talked about this morning, where you're making mistakes and then you're not seeing what was the cause of the pain you got at the end of the mistake, and it can get very difficult.
Yeah.
The quicker thing, which I think you're going to explain
Well, no, you can say.
well, is to become sensitive to the pain that's already within you, and then you will sense when you're acting to avoid it, which is what the addiction is.
Yeah, that's not what I was going to say. I was going to say the quicker
disagree?
thing is to become sensitive to what's loving.
To the love in you, yeah.
And then you'll be sensitive to the pain in you, and so forth, right?
So you could just pray to become more sensitive to the love in you?
Well, you can, but if let's define prayer. What's a prayer really? Prayer is a heartfelt desire. You could say it's a longing. Now, if I have fear in me, how much longing do you think I have?
Not very much.
Not very much, right? So that's a problem, isn't it? You can pray, but, well, if I haven't got a lot of longing in me to really deal with the problem, then of course that prayer is not a prayer anymore. It's just a thought. It's like, we've got to be careful with prayer that it's just not, I think it would be really nice to not live in fear. And then that's it. You know what I mean? We've got to make sure that we really don't want to live in fear anymore as a longing. Now that's going to be trickier, isn't it? It's going to be harder to do that than it is just to imagine, it'd be nice. What if God could just rub out my fear? That'd be great. I'll ask God to do that. The trouble with fear is it's not God's creation. So he'll help you rub it out, but you're going to have to rub it out. Because it's yours. It belongs to you. It's actually in you. It's in your soul. Fear is actually a feeling, an emotion in your soul. So God's not going to reach in there and grab it and say, oh, it's not there anymore. He's going to say, I'll help you get rid of it, but you're going to have to do some things. One of the things you're going to have to do is feel some of it. You have to feel what it feels like to have fear. You're going to have to feel, you have to understand it, is the better way of putting it. You need to understand it, its effects and the reasons why you have it. Because the reasons why you have it are pretty important to go through. So you understand yourself better. So it's important to do that. So the reasons why you have it, important to know. So you need to go through some fear in order to know that. Why did I have this fear? Where did it come from? So that you don't have it anymore. So sure, you can pray, but in the state you're in fear, it's unlikely the prayer will be sincere. So that's a problem. How do I get myself into a state of sincerity when I've got so much fear? Right. So practically, what do I do? So let's say this thing here is a scale, 0 to 10, let's say. That's my scale. And this one here is another scale, 0 to 10. And this one here happens to be my fear scale, how much fear I'm in. And this one here happens to be how much desire I'm in.
And
now,
Jay, yep.
Sorry.
Are we also making these synonymous with pain and love, which was the original part of the question?
We can do, can't we? Because how much desire I'm in is going to directly be proportional to almost how much love I want to express. How much fear I'm in is going to be directly proportional to how much I don't want to act in love. How much pain and suffering I'm in. So, but if we look at desire and fear, so let's say my fear levels, and some of you have had quite hard childhoods and everything, and sometimes your fear levels are right up there, right? Right up there somewhere. So let's call it a 9 in my fear. So my fear's up there at a 9. Now, the only time I'm going to deal with something that I'm afraid of is if my desire is a 10. It's got to be higher than a 9, doesn't it? And if it's higher than a 9, then I'll probably do something, right? But if it's not higher than a 9, let's say my desire is quite high, but it's an 8. Right? Probably nothing going to happen because my fear is too high. So the question then becomes, how do I get this fear down? Isn't it? Yeah, how do I make this fear go lower? What is fear? False expectations appearing real. So fear is error. What's the opposite of error? Truth. Okay, so you could say the antidote. You could think of fear as a poison in you. And it is. It is a poison in you. And the antidote is truth. So when I'm in this level of fear, the only way to get it down is to be more humble to the truth. I need to know what the truth is. I need to find the truth about the matter. So an example of the previous example I gave, I'm afraid of telling Mary that I love her. The truth is I love her. The truth is I don't know whether she loves me or not. The truth is I don't know whether she might or might not. The truth is I'm just expecting that she won't because I'm too old. Huh? So I'm expecting that she won't. So my fear is an expectation that I've created that has no bearing on truth. It's just a place that I'm in emotionally that I just need to feel about how old I am. I need to have some feelings about what I think that feels like and looks like, and I get wrinkly and everything, and look in the mirror and let myself feel about it for a change instead of just ignoring it and acting upon it. So I need to reduce this fear. I need truth is the thing that I need to reduce this fear. So I need to start telling myself the truth. The truth is, I do love her. The truth is, I don't know how she's going to respond. The truth is, if she responds negatively, I can feel my feelings about it. They're not unbearable. I can deal with it. That's the truth. God created me to deal with it. All I need to do if she rejects me is have a cry. And I'll get through it. That's what I need to do. I need to have enough confidence in myself. I need to tell myself the truth that I can handle it. Even if I don't think I can. Even if my fear is saying, you can't handle it? What do you mean you can handle it? Of course you can't handle it. Like, you haven't cried since you were 2. How are you going to do it now when you're 50 or 60, right? But that's the fear working, right? It's not real. It's just a lie. You're telling yourself to not act in desire. Truth is going to undo it, right? Now, one thing I've noticed for myself is that it's very hard to tell yourself the truth when you like your fear. Yeah? You know? You've got to be careful that you don't fall into the pattern of liking inaction, of enjoying it, like feeling safe with it, feeling that's your life under control, because it's not under control. Right? So if I like my fear, I'm going to start to get away from telling myself the truth. So sometimes you have to tell yourself the truth that you like your fear. You like the excuse of it. Does that make sense? You like to give it as an excuse to not act. Sort of like, I could do that, but I'm too afraid. As if fear is a justified reason for taking no action. You see, most of us learnt in our childhood that, through experiences, that I feel like acting, but my mum and dad might have, given me a smack every time I acted. So I get to the stage where I go, I'm just going to get hit down if I act. And then after a while you start feeling safe by not acting. So you think your fear is creating safety. So if you think your fear is creating safety, you're now thinking, my fear is good for me. You're not telling yourself the truth anymore. That's a big lie. You're telling yourself that to give yourself the illusion of comfort. Right? And fear is very insidious like this. It makes you think that, it's a good thing when it's actually a very bad thing in all circumstances. Yeah? Say what you're going to say.
Yeah. Are you finished?
Yep.
Yep. So, but the question was, should I just act to test whether my addiction is going to be love or not?
I want to determine what the truth is before I act, if possible. Right? Now, I can certainly pray for truth, and oftentimes I'm even more sincere about what is the truth and what is, taking desire as an action. So I need to have some sincerity about truth is what I need to develop first, is what I'm suggesting. If I learn the truth about things, then I'll know how to act. I'll know what to do. And also there'll be no penalty because I acted lovingly. Right? Now, of course, that's not always possible because let's say my conscience has been injured, so I can't really ask God and get an answer. And let's say there's no one around me that tells me the truth. They all just tell me more lies. And let's say all my upbringing I've been taught to suppress my feelings and suppress my emotions and suppress and to act in fear. Now, of course, when that environment is there, you've got to be able to undo some of that environment in order to act in a loving manner. Yep. And that's going to require some experimentation and you'll make some mistakes. Now, God doesn't penalise mistakes. He penalises purposeful actions out of harmony with love. Can you tell the difference? A mistake is you thought you were doing the right thing, but it turned out wrong. Right? That's a mistake. The penalty is in the turning out wrong. That's the extent of the penalty. Just turns out wrong. But God's not going to penalise your soul for doing something you thought was right and it turns out wrong. He's going to only penalise your soul for doing something that it was wrong, and you knew it was wrong. And this is particularly the case on earth, because he gives you grace. There's grace. Another thing we noticed about Austrian culture, not a lot of grace. Have you noticed that since you've been here? You know, if you make a mistake in front of people, it's like bang on the horn, or I come from a right-hand drive environment. We're driving around in a left-hand drive car. First time I've done it for 10 years. Going to make some mistakes. Every time it's, like everyone's so impatient and everything about it. Mary and I don't speak German. We go in, we're trying to read the German, trying to work out what the German's about. Sometimes they can, because I did have 1 year of schoolboy German when I was young, and so I can work it out. But for the most part, it's like, oh yeah, I think that says this. And we go and do it, and we go, everyone's looking at it. There's no grace. Just to tell you, oh, you're doing the wrong thing, Matt. I stood in front of the toilet. This is funny thing about European toilets. I don't understand it. You pay to go to the toilet. You pay for everything. It's like, it's so like every bodily function is taxed. It blows me away. You put up with it. It shows me how detuned you are about it. Because every time I see it, I complain about it. It's like, yeah, this is terrible. It's like, you feel like, oh, where's the money? It's craziness, right? And everywhere in Europe, pretty much, isn't it? And not in Portugal.
Not in Serbia.
Isn't it wonderful? Not in Serbia. I'm coming to Serbia. And it's like, it's so bad, really. It is actually a combination of a number of emotional injuries, but particularly the emotional injury of wanting to maximise every dollar, every bit of money you can out of something, And this is something your environment is very much onto. It's like one of the things, we notice it in a lot of areas, like in Australia, you buy things in multiples of 500 grams for the most part. Here it's like 330 grams or 225 grams. Why have they done that? It's because they want to make it the same price but make it less, so they get more profit. And it also results in more waste, which also results in more damage to the environment for the most part. So it's sort of like, it's so uneconomical on so many layers, and yet it's all about the money, right? So here in a society where you're brought up in this environment, you think it's normal. You're there going, everybody's willingly paying the toilet. I'm standing in front of this machine before we go into the first toilet after we arrived in Germany. On the road, standing in front, trying to work out, what's it telling me for a start? It's in German. Oh, it wants me to pay. There's turnstiles stopping me from going to the toilet, and I've got to get some money to get... So Mary's doing another job somewhere in the place we were. So I had to go and find Mary. Have you got any money? Because I didn't have any on me. It's like... So, yes, she had a few bucks, and we go in there. And then I'm working out, I try to put it in, doesn't rejects it. It's like, my God, it's like, how complicated is going to the toilet now? It's not like just whack it out and away you go. It's just like, full on. And it's a statement, isn't it, of how creepage of unloving behaviour catches up in like a society. It's like everybody has accepted this very unloving thing where your toiletries are taxed, right? Now, I know all the arguments that people have about it's a good thing. None of them are... They're all what I would call virtue signalling for the sake of money. But why do it? Why would we even agree to it? And a lot of it is because we're afraid of society. We're afraid of getting, attacked by others. We're afraid of police. We're afraid, there's all sorts of fears we have as to why we accept an unloving premise, right? So it's very unloving to tax your toiletries, isn't it? Right? Now, I'm not saying that it's not good to, just not we everywhere, because that's pretty smelly, right? You wouldn't want to do that. At home we can do that because you just go out in a tree and away you go. But in a built-up society where you've got pavements everywhere and no trees or very little trees, it's going to be smelly eventually. So you don't want to do that. So let's create a place to do it, and let's make it clean, and let's respect the people who look after that clean for us. Let's respect them and let's honour them, because they're nice people, right? Care about that stuff. But why do we accept the unloving? It's because we've been taught to over years and years and years and years, right? To the point where we forget that it's even unloving anymore. Yeah. Very damaging to your soul, that. Because what happens is your soul has been suppressed in love, and then you think that's normal. So you do it all the time without, this is unloving, this is unloving. Instead of that coming up, it's just like, it's just normal, just do it, just normal. And we've got to be very careful in society about that. Because in the end, we're going to end up with a more and more and more unloving society. In the end, what happens is the people who are quite evil finish up milking the society out of its loving state and into a more and more unloving state. So that's going to require some bravery on our part, and fear is the opposite of being brave, right? Truth is what makes you brave. Remember I said that earlier. Knowing the truth makes you brave. So you end up at least saying something about it. Start a movement, like Austrian movement for free public toilets. Let's make it a non-profit. And you know what? I reckon you'd get 1 million people helping you out within 6 months. I reckon. Because surely everyone in Austria is sick of the death of it. Right? So,
or very dehydrated.
Or very dehydrated. yeah. Okay, now where we were next?
Fabian?
Fabian was next.
We have a
Time? What's our time?
It's 4:10.
It's 4:10. Okay. It's the last question, sorry. We will continue this discussion tomorrow.
About expression of love. Is it possible that there's different ways to express love, and like languages? And if so, are there communication problems?
All right. So a question is, are there love languages? Really? And there's a whole theory on earth, isn't there, that there is love languages. Like, let's say, my love language is make my fear go away. Mary's love language, so make me feel safe, might be my love language. Of course, didn't I just say fear is the opposite of love? So if my love language is make my fear go away, it's not love, right? So direct answer to your question, simply, love is always expressed with passion. Always. There is no exception. Right? Now, how that passion is expressed depends upon the type of love. So there's types of love that you may have. So in the Greek language, those of you, I think there's one Greek here, is there? The Greek language, there is quite a number of ways to use love, as there is in most European languages, Spanish as well, even German to some extent, but other languages that are sort of more. Italy is another language where there's different words for love. So if you have a love for a child, that's a different word than if you have love for a partner, and that's a different word than if you have love for a friend, and that's a different word than if you have love for say for God, and that's a different word than if you have a love based on principles. So an example of that is love based on principles is agape, right? That's where I'm acting on a principle, and out of that principle I'm going to love somebody. So in other words, the principle might be, Julius and I are equals. So just because we are equals, I'm going to treat him like an equal. I'm not going to treat him like he's less than me. I'm not going to treat him like he's worth less than me. Because the principle demands that I treat him as if he's my equal. So that's agape. But then there's philia, which is sort of a sense of brotherly affection. Now I can treat Julius with agape love, in other words, principled love, where I feel we're equals, but that's not the same as me having brotherly affection for Julius, is it? That's me feeling like, Julius, you're my mate, man. You know, that's a different feeling, isn't it? Than, Julius, I'm just going to treat you on principle that we're equal. Does that make sense to you? So there's two different types of love there that I've just expressed. Now, one of those, both are valid from God's perspective. You know, in fact, everyone in the sixth sphere is principled the way he's going to act with you. Everyone, every single spirit. It doesn't matter what he believes. He could be an atheist, and there are atheists in the sixth sphere, and there could be people who are Christians, and there are Christians in the sixth sphere, and there could be people who are Muslims, and there are Muslims in the sixth sphere. But whenever they meet you, and you could be a Christian and they're a Muslim, he's going to treat you with equality. He's going to treat you as if you're equal to him. That's based on a principle. But he might not have brotherly affection for you. You follow me? He might not feel, you're my brother, man. You know, give you a hug and find out about your life. That kind of feeling. He might not have that for you. Right? Because that's a different type of love that requires a different type of expression. Right? And that's also different to, you could say, erotic love, like eros is the word in Greek, right? Eros, in terms of its English translation. And that means, erotic love means romantic love, you could almost think of it as, right? So, my romantic love, you're not getting it, man. Ever. You understand? Julius isn't either. Neither are any of you girls here. Sorry, but that's the way it goes. Whether you want it or not, you're not getting it. Because that love from me, this is where it goes. To Mary. Not to anybody else. So that is a unique expression of love, isn't it? That romantic feeling that you have for somebody. That's a unique expression of love. And that unique expression is going to be expressed in certain ways. Affection, touching, kissing, all these different things that are sexual in nature, it's all going to be expressed in a way. Also an admiration of her qualities and her ways she expresses herself, the way she carries herself, how she looks, how she feels to me. All of these things are unique because of the erotic love I feel for Mary.
But you'd have to say that the actions you take are an effect of the feeling that you have.
Correct.
So I know a lot of theory of love languages is like some people have a love language of touch, and that's how they feel loved, is when they're touched more or when they speak more. But all of those things are really just
often injuries
or addictions that people feel reassured about, aren't they?
That's right.
But even if you did touch me or speak with me, that's not the love, that's just an expression of the love.
Yeah. Of which it starts with an emotion, doesn't it? And then because the emotion is boiling over, because it's passionate, isn't it? It's boiling over, so this is how I feel. Now, sometimes Mary feels like, get away from me. Not often. But at the beginning...
At the beginning I did.
At the beginning, often. Right? Mary's going, what are you doing, man? Pretty uncertain about this passionate fellow who is really into her. It's like, is he really into me? Can anybody really be that into somebody? It doesn't really make sense. So there's, and that doesn't stop me from feeling, but it certainly will stop me from acting. Because I can't now act without harming her in some way or other. But I can still feel the same level of passion, but I just not act. I can't act upon it. You follow me? So there are times when I will control the amount of love I have for a person because I know they will not accept it. So some people ask me why I didn't hug them, because I felt they wouldn't accept it. Yeah, that they'd feel uncomfortable. I don't want to make you uncomfortable. Right? But in answer to your question, Fabian, there are different types of love, And if you look at it, there are many different types. I think I think there's 8 or 10 different words in most expressive languages like Spanish, Italian, Greek. There's sort of 8 to 10 words for different types of love, and this includes love of children, love of parents. That are all different types of love, and each one of those types of love is valid, but you will express it with some passion if you have it. Right? It's going to have some expression. However, it's also going to be managed by the person receiving it. If you can feel that they don't want to receive it. So let's say I was interested in Mary and I feel erotic love for Mary and I feel romantic towards Mary, but she didn't want to feel that from me, I would never express it towards her. That make sense?
That's the quality of love, that it respects free will.
It respects free will. Yeah. True love respects free will.
But when you talk about this, like love languages and miscommunication between the love languages, often that is really just people have expectations of how they believe love is, and if their partner or their friend doesn't meet that, then they say, you're not loving me. But that doesn't necessarily mean the partner doesn't. Like, one of my big injuries was take away my fear.
Yeah.
So...
And I never did.
And so
and Mary's like,
I don't get this guy. He says he really loves me, but I don't feel loved ever because I'm terrified all of the time. You know, but then it was, you know, very confusing because in other ways I felt he was very interested in me and attentive to me and affectionate to me, but never taking away my fear. So I was very angry. Like, well, that's your job. You're the man, my main man. You should be taking away my fear. So that wasn't a miscommunication in love languages. That was my false definition of love not being met.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, and in response to that, I couldn't do it. So I know fear is an injury. It's an error. And so whenever Mary wants me to take away her fear, I don't. Ever.
Even if sometimes you might have felt drawn to.
Sometimes I feel drawn to.
But out of principle,
I can't.
Yeah.
So at the same time as I love her romantically, I'm also loving her agape, principally, based on principle. Right? And sometimes the principle overrides the romance. An example of that is if I know Mary is going to feel more romantic towards me if I love her to make her go away her fear, to make her fear go away, which is not really loving her, but it's what she's measuring as love. So if I make her fear go away, I know she's going to be more into me. Right? But out of principle, I can't do it. Doesn't matter how into me she's going to be, if I do it, I can't do it. Make sense? So now agape love, the principled love, overrides, because it must override, or the feeling I actually have is the two work in harmony with each other, and one doesn't preclude the other. So my romantic love for Mary must also include principles. Yep. And if I'm out of harmony with those principles, then I don't love her. So an example of that, a lot of people, when they have romantic feelings towards somebody, they lie a lot. To them. Or for them. One of the two. I don't do that. Right? Mary doesn't do that either. So if I felt the need to lie for Mary or to lie about Mary, then I'm no longer loving her in principle. And as a result of that, I'm also no longer romantically loving her either. Because the two loves don't preclude each other in their operation. So now I need to go, wow, my so-called romantic love that feels the need to lie for her is not as loving as it appears. Because if it was loving, it would be principled. And it's not. So an example of that is, an extreme example of that, is a man who thinks he loves a woman and then wants to rape her. Right? He obviously doesn't love her, right? Obviously not. Right? So that's an extreme example of principle should guide each form of love, because each form of love is principled.
Well,
it honours will. It honours free will.
It's inherent in the love, really.
It's inherent.
So if we're not honouring principle, we can't say we have the love developed.
We don't have the love.
You don't have to sort of add it on or think about it.
So people say, I love my mum and dad. I say to them, do you lie to them? Because if you lie to them, you don't love them. They say, I love my partner. Do you lie to them? If you lie to them, you don't love them. They say they love their children. Do you lie to them? Then you don't love them. You see, love has as its guiding principle other qualities such as truth, passion, desire, faith, humility. So if I say to if I love Mary, and Mary says, does something that makes me feel like I need to cry, I don't take it out on her, because it would be unloving. I just go and have a cry. Humility demands that, right? So you can see that the true expression of love, even though there may be flavours, which are types of love, such as eros, agape, philia, these different types of love, storge, which is sort of like love for storge, yeah, yeah. How would you describe it in English?
Something like nurturing love.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, sort of like love that a parent would have for a child, example. So these forms of love, they are all different types, but they don't preclude each other out of principle.
Can we say they're qualities of love rather than types of love? They're qualities of the substance of love?
Well, not of all love, though.
No.
Because God's love for you doesn't include eros.
No.
Yep. Does that make sense to you? Yeah, so whenever you feel sexual feelings connecting to God, it's not God. There's people who say that to me, whenever I connect to God, I have these wonderful sexual feelings. And I go, not God, God designed that to be your soulmate, not God. God's not going to share those feelings with you. Yeah. So this is a problem. You see, a lot of times we think they are all-inclusive, but there are different types of love that are specific for, the job at hand, I suppose you could call it, the feelings that you have. But the expression of them will always be principled. Yeah. So you could say agape love, which is the principled love, is going to be present in all of forms of love. Yeah?
Yeah, gotcha.
All forms of love will have that in it. Yeah? But the love you have for a brother sometimes, and a sister, by the way, because it's the same kind of love. So if you feel the love of a brother and a sister, like you're my brothers and sisters, right? My love I have for you sisters is the same love I have for my brothers. Like it's no different. But if it was different, and there's a sexual element to it, which for many of you that is the case, it's injured. Because the sexual element should be the other half of your soul. That's the principle. Yeah? So these are things we can learn more about tomorrow, right? Yeah, that'd be a good home. So tomorrow we'll focus a bit more on the expression of love and also the reception of it, because we want to talk about, receiving it from God as well, right? So we want to talk about the reception of it, the expression of it, and also the development of qualities such as the desire for truth, the desire to be humble, the desire for faith, these kind of qualities, and how they will motivate your soul towards growth, towards change in your life. And of course, in that process, we're probably going to talk a bit more about fear, aren't we? Because obviously fear is quite a big thing in society and quite a big thing in terms of an emotion, in terms of how do I practically go through these emotions? How do I get rid of them from myself so they don't guide my life anymore? These things are important things that we need to discuss. So that's what we'll focus our attention on tomorrow. Sound all right?
What time?
Shall we start a bit earlier tomorrow? You find starting a bit earlier and finishing a bit earlier? So let's. What time would you like to start? 10. Is that everyone in agreement? Yep, 10. So let's start at 10, and we'll try to finish off by 3 tomorrow. Yep, that'd be good.
Thank you, everyone.